Welcome back, Generals, to another Let's Fix Generals 0 Hour to make the best game ever. Good, so Mr. Mauler has notified me that there is some problem with memory, with the null memory manager, because of the second last commit that was merged into mainline. So I already compiled it. Let me install it and run it. Yeah. Let's see what happens. Aha. Okay, that is cannot use. Okay. I see. I see. I see. Yeah. Well, that explains the problems. Okay. Okay, so it's here. Get trace to win. Okay. Get registry language. Get registry language is also Okay, so there's two things we need to do. First, we need to move this guy higher. So, okay. The first issue is we need to move this guy probably here. Working directory. Yeah, we can do this here and there. Yeah. The reason I moved the memory manager initialization behind this is so that if there were issues, then it would display in front of the splash screen. That was my thinking, but I didn't realize that get registry language already wants to put debug messages. Okay, so let's initialize it here. Let's see if we then get an error. Okay, we no longer get the assert, but we get some other problems. Debug log. Okay. Oof. Main. Right. Initialize the game. Okay, let me put a breakpoint here. I see. Init memory manager. So why is this looking so much shorter? If it's not, okay. So we probably want to do it here, right? initialize the null memory manager. Let me say here memory manager is already initialized. Null manager, null memory manager. Then we also need to go here and call debug shutdown on shutdown memory manager. Here the ends. What about this one here? Huh, we don't have a pre-main init memory manager. Malloc. Okay, so it is always using malloc. Yeah, we don't need the pre-main memory manager initialization because it would just go through here anyway, and we only need it because the dynamic memory allocator is used later. Yeah. Yeah, I think this will work. Probably. So here it will initialize, debug init, yeah. Initialize the null memory manager. Do we have a log for shutdown? No. Okay. Okay, and then the rest should work. Okay, cool. There we go. Fixed. Of course, we get a whole bunch of other asserts. Okay, cool. Then that will be the fix. Let's open a new branch. Fix null memory manager. Rename. Okay, then this will be ZH fix null memory manager issue introduced by, I think it was 1275. Let me double check that. 1275 127. One, two, seven, yeah, 1275. Okay, then we replicate that to generals, git bash. Okay. Oops. Okay, game code. Git diff. Paste. Da, 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 da. Okay, we have an error. Okay, with main here, we manually delete this. Replicates in generals. Okay. Then we push that. Good. Okay, gen ZH. Fix null memory manager issues. Just copy the copy this here. Issues introduced by that. So this will be this project memory fix major blocker. Follow up for that. Oops. This change fixes the null memory manager. Not working correctly after. That was not working correctly. I wonder if we should move it even earlier. Well, there's a critical section here. Memory pool critical section. Where is this used? What is this? Oh, we cannot search for this right now. It is used in game memory. Huh. Huh. Well, strange. Why is this initialized here in WinMain and not in init memory manager directly? That's weird. Huh. Okay, doesn't matter for now. Good, then let me finalize that. Mauler. Good. I think yeah, this should be merged next. Yeah. Okay. Good. Then I think next task is author Mauler. He asked to look into this guy here. Apparently that is ready. Oh, we have 2 approved ones here as well. Let me take a look at these first. Prevent hacking, hackers packing and unpacking when commanded to hack the internet. Yeah. Let's see if that makes sense. If it's hack internet and current state is hack internet or current state unpacking. Unpacking, yeah. Okay, so what catches my eye here is there's like some asymmetry here in this code. Maybe it's okay, but let me look at that. So here it checks for state machine. Yeah. And then in this condition there's another condition. Okay. But here it also checks for the command type. Why is it checking for this then here? Can do command. Let me search for this here. AI hack internet. Okay, but the hacker can also receive other commands. Yeah. Okay, actually, this does make a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah. Prevent hacking hackers, packing and unpacking. Yeah, I think the change is correct. Fixes, closes. Fix supply drops instantly triggering when subdued while under construction. Prevent an instant supply drop when a supply drop scaffold is subdued while under construction. When the construction is finished, we allow the timer to be initialized and then start shifting the timer while subdued. Prevent an instant supply drop. Supply drops. Okay, this I don't fully understand. I would need to check this in debugger and actually test it. Like, so for example, my initial question would be, what happens if we disable it, the scaffold, then undisable it, well, enable it again, and then disable it again with the microwave tank? Would this cause some issue? Because I see here it checks and is disabled, and then it increments here. And so I wonder if you do it twice, what does it do then? So it increments once. I would need to test this. Yeah, I can't say right now if this is correct. It looks a bit like a hack, but it could be correct. Yeah. What's up here with 1 million authors? What is this? 3 authors to fix this. Okay. Good. That aside, okay, so this one. Can you show the math how you calculated that this is a correct rescale value? Previously you had it in this and now in this, and there's no mention how this was determined. This simply comes from how keyboard scroll factor is calculated within options menu. What's up with the snip here? A scroll value of 50 in the options ini sets keyboard scroll factor to 0.5. Yes. So having the scroll factor at 0.5 means there is no scaling of the RMB scrolling at this scroll value. So in essence, it matches 30 FPS. SM keyboard scroll factor had no effect in return. Okay, let me get that branch again. This one. I can probably fetch and prune all of these here. Let me clean up here. Okay, so and this is now really the latest, so it's weird that I don't see a... Mauler. Why do I have no tracking on this? It's weird. There's no tracking on this one. Okay, let's give this one more spin here, this guy. Okay, this we will merge next. Okay. Okay, I think his explanation makes sense. So the assumption is that previously the scroll factor had no tangible effect on the speed of the scrolling, right? You could change the slider in the options menu, and it would not affect the right mouse button scroll speed. Whether it's at the minimum or at the maximum, it didn't really matter because the scaling just had a really minuscule effect. So the assumption is that we simply say at 30 FPS, the scroll factor would have to be 0.5. But why? If it previously was... Why plus then? If the scroll rescaling 0.5. Okay, so let's say we set this guy to the minimum, which is 0.1, right? So that would be the lowest end. Okay, but we are interested at the default, and that's 0.5, so it will be 1. This will be 1. Ah, okay, so it's 1 times this. And this one is 1 as well at 30 FPS. And then it will simply be vec length times this guy and this guy, which implies it would be the same speed as the original one. Okay, I understand. Okay, I understand. Maybe there should be rescale the scroll factor at the default scroll speed at 50 result in okay, rescale implies multiplication, no, perhaps say increase the scroll factor, increase a full scroll factor to match, increase the scroll factor by increase the scroll factor by 0.5. Increase the scroll factor by 0.5. Increase the default scroll factor by another 0.5 to match the RMB scroll speed, to match the RMB scroll speed with the standard AMB scroll speed at 30 FPS. Increase the default scroll factor by another 0.5 to match the RMB scroll speed with the standard, to match the standard RMB scroll, to match the, increase the default scroll factor by another 0.5, or increase the default scroll factor to 1.0 to match the default RMB scroll speed with the standard RMB, to match the default RMB scroll speed with the retail RMB scroll speed at 30 FPS. Increase the default scroll factor to 1.0 to match the default RMB scroll speed with the retail RMB scroll speed at 30 FPS. Increase the default scroll factor to 1.0 to match the default. Increase the default scroll factor to 1.0 to match the default RMB scroll speed. To match the RMB scroll speeds. To match the default RMB scroll, to match the new default RMB scroll speed with a retail RMB scroll speed at 30 FPS. Which then makes me think, shouldn't this then here be the global data scroll factor 1 minus this here? Let me think. If we scroll factor. I wonder, shouldn't this then be 1.0f minus this? Minus keyboard scroll. There's a default scroll factor, right? Hold on. Oof. Hello? I think there is a default, yeah, this one here. So I do wonder if it has to be this minus max 1.0f, this. That's a calculation. Because if we change the keyboard default scroll factor, what then? It should be 0.5 should be this value. Yeah, it should just be that value. But then no. Oof, hold on. Let's see. So let's say the default was 0.75. What would that mean? 0.75. Then that means we would have to add 0.25, right? Yeah, so it would have to be 1 minus that. Yeah, I think this is correct. Yeah. If yes, should we cache this value elsewhere? I think it's cheap enough to do this here. No need to cache this. Shouldn't this then be 1 minus max? Yeah, because the okay, this is a bit more complicated than I thought. Scroll value of 15. The options any sets keyboard scroll factor to 0.5. So having the scroll factor at 0.5 means there's no scaling of the RMB scrolling at this scroll value. Option sets scroll factor to 0.5. So having the scroll factor 0.5 means there's no scaling. I don't think this explanation is correct. Oh man. So originally it had this guy. Okay, so he says that this addition down here has almost no. Okay. What we should do is, and I think I said that last time already, that I would like to see it in a debugger. Right. I would like to see it in a debugger. Do we have this change? Ugh, here. There we go. Okay. Okay, so let's copy the original code here. So we got this and this and this, right? And this. Okay. Okay, so this is the original and this is a new one, yeah? Well, quasi original. What else is this here? Okay, then let's do here a int. Is it int? It's real. Real. Let's call this, I don't know, add x. Add x is this here, yeah. And then we have add y. And that is doing this. Add x. And add y. Yeah. Okay, let me double check that this really is the case. So we put a breakpoint here. Oh, this would be hard to debug. Oof. Let's do debug log. Offset x percent .0.3f offset y add x percent 3f and add y. Debug log. And that will be this, and this, and add x, add y. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh boy. Okay. Okay, so that should be the legacy behavior. Then let's build that. Yeah. Let's run that. Okay, let's merge this guy and fix now manager. Okay. Good. So. Okay. So we go on a skirmish, yeah, anywhere. So we have our lock here, right? This one here. Okay, now we scroll. Let's check if we actually get messages here. We do. Ah, shit. We need to add a new line here. Oh boy. Other than that, it looks okay. Okay, let's see. So we scroll left and right, okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He's right. This value is absolutely dwarfed by this one. So this add x, add y is absolutely useless. Wow. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, so this effectively has no effect, and what it does is it adds 0. Yeah. So that means this essentially is a scroll factor of 1, right? Yeah. Okay, so the explanation here from Maula, I don't think this is correct. It says a scroll value of 50. Yeah, so having the scroll factor means there is no scaling. I mean, there's no scaling anywhere. At 0, at 1, at 2, there's no scaling because the addition of this scaling makes no difference really, right? Just it's very tiny, minuscule, so it doesn't really matter. Okay. Okay, so we simply say that the default is I would say we don't set it to 0.5 then, but we set it to this guy, just this, right? So if the default was 0.7, then that would be the rescale factor, right? Rescaling. It's a bit weird though. I don't like it. So if the value, so basically the scaling was 1. The scaling was 1. Yeah. So if we, how should we treat that then? Because the thing is like, what if the default was 1 to begin with? essentially it was one. You're right. The original. The original. The original scalar took practically no effects. Let me add this here. And the result is like this, right? Original scalar took practically no effect. This means the original scroll speed factor was like 1.0. But how do we, I mean... So what we now essentially do is add 0.5 aka this one to the other value, this one. It's quite some nonsense looking at it in isolation. What is this here? 100. which makes it 1 by default. So we add the default to our keyboard scroll factor. It is a bit weird setup, right? Oh man, it's not really satisfying because it feels so random, you know. But I guess it's all right. Yeah. Rescale. I think it's okay. Yeah. It's probably okay. And it's probably also okay that he called it rescaling factor. Yeah. And it's probably also okay that it's this value and not this one. Oh. There's a scale, the default scroll factor to 1.0. Okay, but then if you would now go to options to game data ini, and you set the default keyboard scroll factor to 1, then you have 0.5 plus, this will be 1 then here by default. Kind of makes sense. Yeah, I think it's okay. It's a bit weird. Because the thing is, even if you change the default scroll factor in a mod, you change it to 1, then your default scroll speed would be higher than. Because if a mod sets default scroll factor to 1.0, then the new default would become 1.5, which would be 50% faster than the original. Let's 0 minus. Maybe we should just say the more I think about it, the more I'm of the opinion that we should not rescale it, but yeah, then you certainly notice the switch, right? Yeah, you notice the switch. Oh man. Let me test it again without the... Let me test the rescale to 0. We quit here. Man, this is a real clusterfuck. Because it's really... So the problem I have with this is that basically the calculation, it does something, it's like this magic value essentially, right? Just because in the status quo it's like this, and so then we have to always carry on this thing and it will stay there forever, right? Because someone decided this at some point, right? And then it just stays there. Because if you change it then later, then it's more uncomfortable than if you change it now, I would say. If you change it, if you fix it now, it's easier than doing it later, right? Because there's already quite a bit of changes here in the scrolling because there are multiple bugs, right? So it would be easier to make it right at this time and not later. And this rescale is weird in a way, right? It's not the end of the world, but it's weird. Because essentially this factor should rescale it, right? From as small as it wants to as big as it wants, right? So you could scale it to 0.0001, yeah, to make it extra slow. But since you add this 0.5, you can't get that slow actually, right? You can't scale it down to a certain amount because of this. Yeah, that's the problem I have with this. Yeah. Okay, so we have built. Let's launch it. Actually, before we launch this game, let me launch retail version. Okay, so here we have retail. And here we have our clients. Yeah. Good. So Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, let's take a nice Final Crusade map. Well, Tournament Island is fine. Oh, Jesus Christ. So many Jesuses. Another one. Tournament Island. There we go. Okay, so this is default. And this is not default. Now it is default. Okay. Good. So this is slower. Yeah. So if we go now to options and we set the scroll speed all the way down here, then it's really slow. And we could go slower, right? If we, the more I think about it, the more I'm opposed of the scaler. The more what this now essentially does is okay, let me add the more I think about this, the more I believe we should not add the scaling. Reason being, it makes it impossible to create a really small scaler. The smallest scaler essentially will be 0.5. But if someone wanted a very cinematic, very slow scroll for cinematic video production, for example, then he could not set this he could not set the slider to 0.1 or lower. He could still change it. No, he also can't change it. He also cannot. You could not set the slider to 0.1 because 0.1 would become 0.6. Options.ini. Yeah. You better not add the scaling. Reason being, it makes it impossible to create a really small scalar. The smallest scalar essentially will be 0.5. But if someone wanted a very slow scroll for cinematic video production, for example, then you could not set the slider to 0.1 or lower, because 0.1 would become 0.6. Yeah. Note that it is now possible to use the user would need to set without the scaler. The user would need to set let me say the most graceful tweak would be actually to set this guy actually. I have a better idea. The most graceful tweak would be actually to set. Let me get to game data ini. Or let me just check where this guy is being set. This one. Yeah. The most graceful tweak would be actually to set keyboard scroll factor, speed factor 1.0 in global data.ini. However, that will also affect the from 0.5. That will also affect the arrow scrolling default. Yeah, we cannot add a second slider because that would require WND changes. scroll empty where you can also stay as is. Yeah. I believe we should not scale this in code. It simply is that the keyboard default scroll speed factor should be set to 1 in game data ini. Now, obviously, if we ship just an executable, then we cannot do this. So we would have to ship like with the game data ini change. Yeah. We can bundle our first release with global data any and change it there. The only problem is it will still be the default in existing users will still be 50 in the options ini, right? And then mods and so on. So yeah, it doesn't help to ship it with the global data any much. No. But is there anything else we can do? However, this will not apply to all users who have existing options.ini or mods. There must be some other solution, maybe. Is there some other solution, maybe, where we can gracefully rescale? But I can't think of anything. Let me just ask, is there maybe something else we can do to lift to 1 with a trick? Without losing the ability to customize it. I don't have a good idea right now, but maybe there's a trick that we can do to lift it to 1 for the time being. But of course, we don't want to lose the customizability. Like, someone should be able to set this to 0.2 or 2 or 100. I don't know. Any value. I don't know, that makes sense. Was a trick. Let me just cross this through. Yeah, I'm not a fan of rescaling this thing in code. Just because the default in the original game was different. It creates a mess. Like it gets a benefit. So here's the thing. If we do this rescale, let me get back to the code. Where's the code? Here. If we do this rescale with 0.5 and adding 0.5 here, it has a benefit of getting the scroll speed towards the same speed at 30 FPS with retail, right? Okay, fair enough. But the drawback is that we carry on this bullshit setup forever, where you now have an absolutely bogus rescaler here, which doesn't allow you to set really small scale values, which of course are not that useful, but it is legitimate to think that, to assume that you can set a really small one. Like if you set a scalar to 0.001, you expect things to move slow, right? You don't expect that there's some magical cap, minimum cap, that, you know, lifts it higher to 0.5. Right? That doesn't meet the expectation. So it's like some magic number that just rescales something not the way you expect it to be, just because it wants to be compatible with the legacy speed at some frame rate, which is not even a common frame rate in multiplayer. So I think it's a liability. Yeah, it took me long enough to figure it out. I don't like it. I think it's a liability. It's also not that useful because most players will be at 60 FPS plus, so for them the scroll speed will be slower anyway. And yeah. So essentially, someone who plays at 60 FPS would need to set a scroll speed to 2.0, which is well above the limits of the slider in the options menu. Yeah. And if someone was playing even higher, but who's scrolling that fast, right? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I don't have a good idea. Maybe, I mean, you can always have a command line argument, but no one sets command line arguments. Maybe I don't know. I don't have a good idea right now. But this is not good. It's not good. It's a tricky situation. I don't have a good answer for this. Yeah. The main problem is that the original scroll speed was simply bugged. You fix a bug and then you now have this dilemma of, things have changed and players won't be comfortable with it eventually, but objectively things have improved. But I think what would help if the slider in the options menu, this one here, if it didn't have this limit here, this 145 limit, so that's 1.45 scalar. So keep in mind that if it's at 1, that represents original scroll speed, round about here or so, right? So that scroll speed would now be original at 30 FPS. Yeah, and so if you put it to max, that's 1.45. But the edit bonus, hold on. Let me one benefit we offer is that now the options menu slider actually sets that the scroll factor of 100 to 145 can actually be restored, can actually be loaded from options.ini when set in options menu. So we do get an additional 0.45 scroll speeds over retail, scroll speed range over retail. So things are not that bad. With this in mind, we do get an additional 0.45. So we can scale higher. Now obviously at 60 FPS the scrolling would still be higher. And with Gentoo they were also able to set it much higher. Gentoo had this option where, I think we can see it here. Yeah. Gentoo has an option here, scroll speed. So by default that's 1x, and we can set it to 25, which gives insane speeds. Yeah, so that is lost. And you can set it also much lower, 0.1. Yeah. Yeah, so Gentoo did provide functionality to adjust the scroll speed very generously from 10% to 25, which is a much better range than what this now offers. The range here is 0.1 to 1.45, which is not that much. Yeah. It's better than nothing. How about I have another idea. How about we scale this? Instead of adding, we scale it. So you could scale it. You could scale it by 2, right? What we could do is scale by 2. I say a more a reasonable alternative scalar could be that times 2. Then it defaults, then 0.5 defaults to 1, and we get a bit more range by default. Then we get a bit more range. So 0.1, get a bit more range from 0.1 1.45 to 0.2 2.90. That we could do. Then you can still get very small numbers then, right? So if you would set the lower bound to, I don't know, 0.001, then you still get a super low bound with a multiplier of 2, right? Really low. So we can do the scalar. I do think that is a solution. Yeah. I think that's a solution, yeah. We scale it. Yeah. By 2. Yeah, I need to think about it a bit more, but this looks like a reasonable solution here. Yeah. Yeah, there's way too much thought put into that. Okay. Regarding this change here, actually, maybe I should move the exe properties to a new change, to a separate change. It's better to move the exe properties to a separate change, because does not match what the title of this change promises. Yeah, I think what we can do is maybe we create a new branch. Ah, shit. We first revert this. Let me close the game. Yeah, but this is a good idea. We get more range. we get more range, and we get the scroll speed closer to what the original did. I think that makes everyone happy. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I would sleep over it, revisit it next time, next session. Okay, regarding this one, how about we create a new branch from this one, and we call it at exe properties or exe file info. Yeah. Then we go in here, and we reset current branch to here. Hard. Hold on. Cancel. Go back to here. There we go. Reset hard. There we go. Okay, let me push that. Then we do this here in a follow-up change. I think that's a better idea. Then let me do, let me hide this one here. Outdated. Let me say here, edit, reverted exe file. So file info. Stuff. Revert exe file info change. Removed. Okay. Then I have it removed to what this change previously did. It's replicated to generals, and then we can merge it, and then I will create a new change, and then OmniBlade can review that. That's a better idea, yeah. I need water. Good. Then, yeah, okay. So the only thing I will do now is wait for this to build. Can we maybe merge something else? Let me see. State approved. Review approved. This one we could merge. Take a look at this one more time. Const. Get commands. Okay. Yeah, I think we can merge this. Or was there anything else to do? Okay, I think we can merge it. Maybe we should name it now that with a new name. So this is the old name. Get command type as string. Maybe we give it a new name. Okay. 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 That is merged. Good. Then I will merge this as well. Then I will create this new branch and then I'm done. Yeah. I think I can already start closing some things. Yeah. Okay. Generate Git version information printed in the game window, title, options menu, and main menu. Okay. Then we will confirm squash and merge. Generate Git version information printed in the game window, title, options menu. Okay. Good. Then we merge this guy. Delete branch. Okay. Then we go to main. And we pull. And then we create a new branch. Add exe file info to, and then we cherry pick. Automatically create a commit. And there we go. Okay, then I will rename this to gen zh, add file information, add file info to generals executables. Add file info. Say implement file info for generals executables. Implement file info for generation. Okay. Okay, this change, I think we can copy what we have already written here. Requests. Then we also copy the image. Labels. Enhancement. Gen ZH. Labels. Gen ZH. Minor. Yeah. This change implements file info generation for generals executable. Originally, the exe properties contained no information. Originally, the exe properties contained no information. Information. Information is now generated through CMake, but probably still needs some more tweaking. The new information is set in CMake, and which then generates RC files for Windows executables. The generated information is not yet ideal, but a starting point. I also renamed general ZH to general ZH on. So renamed generals V to generals V. Also renamed targets on Windows. Targets. Version build num is now 0 instead of 601. It's now set to 0 instead of. Starting point for further tweaks. In future changes, we probably need I need to. I don't need to say. I believe we need to. We need to somehow combine the Git version with the Git version needs to be combined with the retail game version somehow. So 1.4 dot and then our version behind that. So there's the major version, that's the 1, that's the minor version 4. So that's given by the game, and then we can add our versions behind that. Yeah, something like this. I don't know yet. We need to think about this. Right now it just says 1.4.0.0. Yeah, it's good. Good. And let me also tell OmniBlades. OmniBlades. Message. I will delete this message. Moved it to new change instead. Okay, good. Then I will end it here. We got a bit of stuff done. Lots of thinking about the scroll speed again, which is a very delicate. Yeah, it's you touch this one thing, you fix some bugs, and then yeah, it has this ripple effect, and you need to make some reasonable decision how to tweak it. Yeah. But I think, yeah, multiplying the scroll speed by 2 for the right mouse button scrolling, I think that makes sense. Yeah. It certainly is better than adding 0.5. That is not a good idea. Yeah. Good. Then, yeah, I wish you a great day or night. Until next time. Goodbye.